Okay, welcome everybody to this first of who knows how many kind of sit-down conversations that I'm going to be trying to curate around the topics of animation, motion capture, and all of the kind of people that I've had the chance to interact with in and out of the industry, and just generally have a conversation to these people to see if we can kind of like divulge any further information or kind of some I don't know, interesting topics or ad libs and stuff like that. You'll obviously know me from the horrendous videos that were uploaded before this. So yeah, my name's Oliver Cook, and we also have Mike Woods in here as well.
Hello again.
And there's Mike Woods. And we also have a guest for this conversation, the topic of the hour. Sir, would you like to introduce yourself and maybe tell us a little bit about your current job title and what you currently do?
Sure. Hey, my name is Ollie Satterley. I am a senior facial animator currently working at Cloud Imperium Games. Yeah, there being two Ols in this conversation is not going to get confusing, right, Ol?
Not at all, Ol. It's going to be really easy. There's going to be no no hassle with that, no. So yeah, just to preface all of this, I do have kind of like a couple of loose questions at the side that I'd like to kind of talk about to get the ball rolling in certain topics. But yeah, to kind of give a little bit of background, I guess. How long have we been working together now, Ol? We've been working together for...
I mean, really, it feels like a lifetime.
Yes, yeah.
But it's actually probably been about 3 years, I think, now that we've been working together.
Yeah, I think it has been about 3 years, hasn't it? And incidentally, myself and Ol both got given a senior position. Was it arguably in the? It was definitely in the same week, but I feel like it was probably the same day that the two hammers fell at the same time.
Yeah. Well, I remember you were away on a shoot at the time, and I'm pretty sure we would have been told roughly around about, give it a day either side, but around about the same sort of time.
Yeah.
But it was only until that you came back that we were just like, oh, they made me senior. Oh, they made me senior.
The fools. So yeah, me and Ol have been working together for around about 3 years now, both in our respective fields. So I think internally we're kind of known as like Body Ollie and Face Ollie at the moment.
I'd say that's pretty accurate.
Yeah, Bolly and Folly. But yeah, so we've had a chance to kind of work together in certain capacities, be it in a professional one or in a personal capacity with some of the stuff that I was talking about in the last videos when we were talking about the digidouble and stuff like that.
Yes.
But yeah, it's kind of, funnily enough, not the current stuff that I really want to focus on. It's more of the stuff that kind of got us to this point and the things that we've kind of done. From let's say, I don't want to say from education even, because we'll get into that, but how long have you been professionally animating? And I use that term because I know it's not necessarily facial animation for you, and I know there's been a kind of a journey through all of that. So how long would you say that you've been professionally doing the things that you've been doing?
Wow. Not to sort of date myself or make myself feel any older than what I feel, but I'd say it's probably around about, I'm gonna estimate around about 5-6 years, probably a little bit more.
Awesome. And yeah, I kind of alluded to it there, but kind of like how has the journey been for you from, say, because again, I'm not going to put words in your mouth or anything, but I know that I know that you've been at other companies. I know that you've done freelance. I know that you've been in and out of freelance and then getting into other companies. So what has just been that general kind of roadmap from start to finish, like post education, let's say?
Well, I mean, anyone who's been in the industry will most likely always say that it's a roller coaster of a journey. If there hasn't been any easy and comfortable spots, they have definitely been like met with and even sometimes outweighed by pretty difficult spots. The job is definitely as complicated as it needs to be regarding like the state of the industry and whether or not there are actually like studios hiring or stuff like that. And yeah, like you said, I've been I've been on a fair different sort of like journey of things. I've been, I think I've been to about 4 different studios now. This being the 4th one,
Wow.
and yeah, worked a bit of freelance in between then because I was between jobs. But yeah, the industry has been kind, but it has also been cruel in different ways.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can get into that sort of stuff later if you want.
Yeah, of course. And you said freelance there as well. Funnily enough, we have somebody else in the chat that's been more predominantly in freelance. I know I've done like a freelance job or two, but being in freelance, I think, is a lot different than just picking up a freelance job here and there. You know what I mean? Like when you dedicate yourself to freelance and say, I'm going to do freelance. How did you find that period of your life, kind of doing freelance work and having to? Were you actively looking for a lot of stuff, or did you find that stuff was coming towards you? And also, what kind of freelance work was it? Was it like traditional animation? Was it hand key stuff that you were doing, or what kind of stuff was it that was coming your way? Or as I say, did you have to go and hunt for that stuff?
It was a little some and some. I think everyone's experience in freelance is going to be different, but the way that I remember it was a very competitive market. You sort of have to, in the nicest way I can think possible, to sell yourself, obviously, to outsourcers who want to have a job done for a certain price and done within a certain time. You obviously have to market yourself as in a reasonable way. You've got to outbid people to an extent, and you've got to hope that ultimately that the person on the other end appreciates the work that you've done and they're confident in the work that you are able to do. So from my standpoint, it was very much like, right, well, I need to keep my prices low because I need to attract people, but I also need to keep the price reasonable so that you can sustain a decent living.
You can eat.
Yeah, right. Regarding the lifestyle, though, it's very. It comes with pros and cons. Like you're your own boss. You can take as much time off as you want. You can have lunch when you want. No one's going to tell you to make too much noise or not make too much noise in the kitchen.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you've got to be on the ball. You've got to keep track of like who you've got contracted, what you're doing for them, how long it's going to take, what money you're getting from it. Like, is that going to be, coming out of taxes and stuff like that? You've really got to be your own secretary and manager and animator, and
you got to do every single facet of that job, right, in order to keep the books rolling.
And if the work doesn't come in for a certain period of time when you've got nothing coming in, it can get a bit scary. Like, when the bills start racking up and you've got to really try and like make ends meet, but there's nothing out there. It's kind of, well, you gotta make some snap decisions in those moments.
Yeah, I can imagine so. So I was going to say not to focus too much on the freelance stuff there, but would you say that in the most respectful way you had to kind of like I don't want to say undersell yourself, but you did say about like lowering your prices in order to be competitive. And what I'm trying to get at there is, I guess there's a very difficult line between like I need to be competitive, but as you say, at the same time, I need to, I am worth something. My skills are worth something. So
well, it's also an interesting point because if you do price yourself too low in some aspects, a lot of that in itself can scare off a lot of people because. Say, an outsourcer could look at that and say, "Oh, well, why have they priced themselves so low? Are they just bad at what they do? Not so sure we're going to get a good deal in this."
Yeah.
So, to an extent, that can scare off, the work that you want to come in. But at the same time, yes, you've got to sort of like check the market, so to speak, like see what you're up against and price it accordingly. But yeah. I do think, especially in this day and age, like I do feel sad that a lot of artists do undersell themselves for the sake of getting work in. And to some extent, maybe some outsourcers are also only offering a price that, people in more desperate situations are more than happy to, accommodate for.
So
But
would you say that freelancing has been or at least the lifestyle of freelancing has been somewhat akin to this whole kind of working from home, coronavirus, kind of not being able to go out kind of situation? Would you say that there's some parallels between those two?
oh, definitely, yeah. It's you get to do it in your pajamas, which I'm more than happy to facilitate.
I was going to say nothing from the waist down, right? Nothing from the waist down. Absolutely nothing. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. But no, I think it definitely like the first few weeks that we were doing this, it sort of brought back those memories of like, oh, I remember doing this, like rolling out of bed, getting a coffee in the morning, get some breakfast, sitting down in the room next door, and just
Yeah.
and yeah, like it's like I said, it's definitely pros and cons, and I would recommend to any artist out there or animator or even programmer and such, like, to at least at one point in their life give freelance a try. Obviously, when they're in a comfortable and secure situation, when you're sort of on the breadline and you've got either people to provide for or a mortgage to pay and stuff like that, or rent, it can get a little bit risky at times.
Yeah. I was going to say, are you hearing some parallels yourself, Mike, from when you were freelancing?
I didn't really want to interject. I don't want to kind of impose myself on Ollie's story. But yeah, I think the main thing that always comes back to me is that freelancing it's kind of like a euphemism for being out of work, basically.
Right.
It's just one of those things that you kind of get forced into, especially in a creative industry a lot of the time if you lose your job. And there are quite a few pitfalls, as was kind of mentioned. One of the things that doesn't get mentioned an awful lot is based on you always kind of base yourself on whether you're considered to be a junior, or what kind of level you're kind of posting your skills at. But what people quite often forget are basic things like pensions.
Yeah,
and stuff like that.
That's true. Yes.
You kind of pitch yourself at a level. You quite often have to undersell yourself initially just to get your foot in the door as well, and then work kind of dries up before you even see any returns on that. And you've got other issues other than current concerns like paying mortgages or rent or buying food, little things like that. People do forget about the broader concerns, is that your actual costs are higher than what you think that they are, because you need to pay for other things like living when you retire, basically.
Right.
And another thing that I didn't touch upon as well, that can also come into play when doing freelance, is, say, doing a piece of work that you're sending off to your contractor, and the work not getting approved. More often the case, work can get sent back. Even the smallest thing, like, oh, good job, but just this little bit, cherry on the cake sort of thing. But stuff like that can eat into your potential next line of work as well.
I guess you're not getting paid any extra, are you?
No,
you're getting paid what you're getting paid, and they want the product that they've asked for towards the end. Yeah. So, how would you say that? Because I guess a word that I want to kind of use with a job, with a contract, with something that you've signed, is, I guess, the word security. And I guess how would you say that those securities are beneficial in comparison to the quote unquote dream life of living a freelancer that just always has work on their doorstep and can always get stuff done. How is that compared, and is there stuff that you appreciate a lot more from a contract job now than you do from doing freelance?
Well, it's funny you should say that, because I guess I've put freelancing in kind of a downer sort of like spotlight, but to say a pro about freelance, you do get a lot of varied work.
Okay.
Like, the job will never be the same from one contract to the next. You'll often get something that's like, oh, we need you to do this prop thing, or oh, this creature needs to do this stuff, or it can vary a lot. But obviously, with a secure job, much like the one that we're in at the minute, it's very again, with pros and cons. The pros, you've got security. You've got a guaranteed wage coming in every month that you can get comfortable. And to an extent, that is good, but to an extent, it's also that can be a bit bad.
I was going to say, if you're making FIFA games, then you're constantly going to be doing footballers, right?
Exactly.
That kind of an analogy, yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, if you're happy doing what you're doing, you know, the job will never get boring. So, there is that. But yeah, the usually the variety of the job, depending on the studio, can usually be a bit samey. But yeah, I definitely prefer having the security of, you know, a guaranteed contract over time with a guaranteed wage. I have worked at companies before. I won't say names, but I have worked at companies before where, unfortunately, you know, work has dried up to an extent, and nearly the whole studio of people have been let go. And that is a scary moment. Being in that situation where, you know, 1 minute you're sitting on a contract where it's guaranteed money, job security, and then within the next moment, you've got 2 weeks to find the next thing, or you're in trouble.
I was going to say, not to steal somebody else's story and not to name names or anything, but we've definitely heard passing stories of, hey, entire company, just leave the office building and come over to this hotel for 10 minutes. Oh, okay, we'll all go over there. Right, the doors are locked, you can't go back in, you're all fired. Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, this was a Wednesday. There's nothing different about the day or anything, but we've definitely heard passing stories of that kind of stuff happening in the past.
Yes, and even stories such as, you know, people that we also work with, who you might bring on here at some point. I'm going to assume, but
maybe
people who've worked in other studios who have not been paid for months on end.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I guess, you know,
it's the industry.
Yeah.
And I guess one of the things that we haven't necessarily said, which is very much about that industry, freelance, and it all kind of ties into one big bubble, I guess, is the industry. Whilst there are a lot of studios, names of people they get around, and it's not that big of an industry.
Yes.
Like if you're doing good work in one place, there's a good chance that somebody else in another place is going to be able to vouch for you for whatever reason. And as you work through companies, I'm sure. Well, I'm sure you. I know that you know other people as well, or that you've kind of gone through a company here or a company there, and you know people's names, and they know your names, and that circulates, and that's definitely something that you hear a lot about, or at least I heard a lot about before I got into in the industry, and it's only within like the last, say, 2 years or so that you realize, as I've seen people come and go, you realize that is evident because you're part of that process, you're part of that kind of permeation of that information and stuff. That's awesome.
And I would say, to like getting onto I guess a slightly different point, when getting into the industry and stuff like that, it does help to know people. A lot of the time, yeah. Like my first job that I ever got in a studio, I guess it was a studio, was in Dundee. It was a small little phone application company that were kind of trying to expand their horizons and thought that they'd try some games. The first job that I ever got there was from a guy who I'd met at uni, who had also got a job there, and he had recommended me to fill a certain spot that they were missing.
Yeah.
It was initially only a 3-month contract, and I was living down in Norwich at the time, so it was an incredible move. But they kept me on for another extra 3 months, and then and then they started to shut it down after that. So
yeah. And I guess that's something else that it just seems like we can barrel roll into topic after topic when we talk about this kind of stuff. But then you've got things like moving and moving around the country and moving to where the work is and stuff like that. I've been very blessed to be able to stay around kind of like my home area for a very long amount of time. Even now, working where I work, it's still a commute every day, but it's not uncommutable. It's definitely commutable. It's not like I'm going from one end of the country to the other, but you've had to move, up and down the country technically, and you've had to be all over the place in order to secure the work. So how's that been as an experience now, if you can look back at it retrospectively?
Looking back on it, it makes me laugh actually a little bit, because when I first moved out to go to Dundee, which was part of my education, I always thought while I was up there, like, oh, you know what, maybe someday I'll get a job that's like close to home, as in, family home, and I'll get to be with them. And looking back now, like, over the years, it's gone from like Scotland, Dundee, Manchester, Derby, and now I'm here.
Oh, God.
So I don't know if this is where it's going to end. But...
just like it's almost like you're going back to the freelance side of things, and you're just back in the position where you can be doing that again, right? Yeah, yeah, I totally understand that.
Exactly.
So before we get into any kind of like education or anything like that, because that's something I do want to touch upon, I just wanted to kind of like get back to those early days before education even. And I've heard a couple of stories myself from different people as to how they've got into the positions that they've gotten into. And I don't mean like some guy, offered me a job, and then just happened to be. I mean more like, where did you start to gain that mentality for, let's just even say, like an artistic role that then turned into, animation, that turned into like, oh, I'm going to go down games animation or this kind of animation, or where did that all spout? And yeah, where was the early conceptions of that for you?
I guess the earliest conception of that, like, I knew I wanted to get into something to do with games and film when I was actually very young. I used to get like little just pads of paper and just literally fill them. Initially, I wanted to try and get into game design because I always had like a bunch of ideas and I'd always write stuff down. And I think one of the earliest things that's sort of like a memorabilia to me now was when I was very young. I forget what age I was. I think I was probably in my early teens. I sent a letter to Rareware, who at the time were making games for the Nintendo 64.
I was going to say, like, was it in that golden
Yeah,
era? Yeah.
This was like Banjo-Kazooie, Banjo-Tooie, Conker's Bad Fur Day, etc.
Yeah.
I sent them a letter to say, hey, I'm just about to go to high school, but like I'd like to know like what do I have to do to get into the industry? And fortunately, they were nice enough to send me back like a little, oh, thank you for sending a letter to us. And
oh, wow.
I've got it somewhere amongst all the paper, and yeah, they advised me like, oh, okay, if you want to do this, then this is the path you want to take, and if you're thinking about going to university, we recommend this one. Didn't go to that one, but you know. It was from that early age that I kind of knew, like, I've always been a gamer throughout my life. Gamer.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I've always been interested in video games, not competitively, more casually. Always been interested in film, grew up watching a lot of Disney, a lot of animated films, loved them, knew it's something that I want to do. And then as like, as you go through the ages, when I finished high school, I moved on to. Hope you can't hear that cyclist.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay.
Well, Mike, cut that out. I'm kidding.
He will. Carry on.
So yeah, finished high school. Went to sixth form or college, as some would say. Studied art, fine art, and did a course in graphics design and stuff like that. From there, went to university at Norwich. Studied in game art and design. This was the sort of stage where I knew I wanted to get into games, but I was unsure about what I wanted to get into specifically.
I was going to say, because we haven't heard the bombshell yet of animation yet, have we? We haven't seen where that kind of comes in. So yeah, carry
on. Obviously, with a course like games art and design, it focuses mainly around about games art and design, but it covers like all the different aspects of it. You've got the 2D side, the 3D side. They didn't so much cover animation, but it was sort of like a touched upon subject that was quickly moved on from. But I think it was during that time where I knew that was what I wanted to do.
Okay.
I tried doing modeling. I tried doing texturing, UI generation.
Engine stuff as well, all that kind of business. Yeah.
Not so much engine stuff. The course at the time was quite underdeveloped, so the resources that we had available to us were quite limited. We were more sort of like the creative side of things, but we didn't really have many engines to work with, if any at all. And then once I finished university there, I went up north to Dundee, where I went to uni again for a year, doing games development, where met a lot of talented and very enthusiastic people, and that's where I was able to refine what I wanted to do.
Ah, okay.
And like I've never stopped trying to learn since. You never stop learning in the industry. There will always be new things to learn as things progress and upgrade and refine. So yeah, since then it's moved from like creature to bipedal animation to facial, which is where I'm currently at the moment.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of been a well-rounded journey so far.
I was gonna say, like, it's mega impressive to me to know that you have such that experience and that wealth of experience in so many different areas to do with animation. So it's, I can imagine that let's say me, for example, on the mocap level, like, sure, we've kind of dealt with face here and there, capturing the data and whatnot, but 9 times out of 10, anything that we do at the back end is all to do with the body. And I've done a little bit of facial in the background there, but I've never done it to the capacity where it's like, well, now I'm a creature animator, well, now I'm bipedal animation, well, now I'm facial animation. It's almost like you've gone through the mill 3 times in those different disciplines, and I can only imagine that every time you go through another run of that mill, that you always take something from what you've learned before and bring it over and try and apply that in some way, either creature to biped to facial. You know what I mean?
There's always different things to grasp from them, and I guess there are certain aspects that you can take from one to the other. I'm not sure so much with facial, because it is literally just
it's this baby here.
Yeah, this baby and nothing else. No. But no, there are definitely things that I can say that I've learned from being here at the studio, and the certain jobs that come across your desk on a daily basis, have helped me sort of like if I was to apply this to this section of like body animation, that could probably be useful.
Probably do something, yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
I was gonna say, I was thinking about even if it's just like a new way to work with curves inside of Maya, or just being introduced to that new way whilst doing face, and then when you go back to body, it's all there, right? You don't lose that information. You just constantly stack it up, which is really cool. So it sounded like going to university for that extra year. Was it in Dundee? Sorry, you said that extra year was.
Yes, yeah.
It sounds like that was quite a pivotal moment then for you to go from, I'm not quite sure what I want to do, but I know I want to be into games, and then something happened in that year that then, when all came out the back end of that, he was like, I want to be an animator. Can you specifically kind of remember even like what maybe the first thing was, or maybe what a couple of those things were that happened in that year that made you go from like, oh, there's this big breadth of stuff that I can do. Wait a minute, that's what I want to do. Can you remember the point or the thing or the project or the or even was there a particular thing? I mean, I'm sure there was a moment, but maybe it wasn't a physical thing that you had to do, and it was more of like just a cognitive kind of, I've got to think about this.
I think it was just more the sort of like, I guess the how I felt after something was finished. As I said, like I've always been interested in like animated films and the work that animators put into games and such. I guess it was. I don't really know. Like, I guess it just must have been like I'd worked on a few projects with animation, and by the end of it, I was just like, "Oh man, look at this! This is, this is." And I guess also from that, when I had shown it to people, it sort of gauged a sort of like a broader response of just like, "Oh well,
I know what you're talking about there, yeah.
I kind of felt with animation that, and a lot of people tell this, animation is difficult because you've got to really find the small rewards in doing it, because you're going to be doing it a lot, like either drawing or moving a body in 3D. You're going to be doing that a lot, so you're going to spend weeks and weeks doing like animation for a 1 second clip, but it's going to be the best damn 1 second clip you've ever made, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I think it was. I think it was probably that. Like subconsciously, it just must have been that steered me in that direction. Because after a while, I guess I just kind of found myself doing more and more of that, and less of the other stuff that I had previously learned to do.
Well, it kind of makes sense though, because a lot of people say that, you know, if you find something that you love doing, then you'll never have to work another day in your life. And if you were kind of putting stuff out there, and you were, what's the best way of putting it? You were reaping the reward more from that stuff. It resonated more with you. The reward did. So yeah, it makes total sense to gravitate towards it. I think I always said towards my end of university time was I liked putting like motion capture data onto characters, because you'd see these people that had made these characters, and they'd have this whole new appreciation for their character, for, you know what I mean? Like, oh my God, it's moving. Like, and they've never seen that before. They've seen maybe a T-pose, and they've maybe posed it for a couple of shots, but you put a run cycle on something for someone, and they go, wow, like, there's character there all of a sudden. Like, he looks bulky with his armor and stuff like that, so...
It's the illusion of life, isn't it?
Exactly that, yeah.
It's
very
taking
well said.
a very statuesque thing and saying, right, now it's living and breathing.
Yeah, and I can totally resonate with putting that in front of somebody and just watching their eyes light up again and be like, wow, like, that's...
I mean, I partially saw that recently with you and your rig.
Yeah,
how it went
definitely.
from like literally a T-posing sort of statue of yourself to we got it talking, baby.
Yeah, which definitely, like, I do want to make even a video or two just talking about that, or even going through the process again, because I highlighted it in the previous videos that I said that you know, I gave and I have to be careful about how I talk about this, because it's not technically a product anymore, but you know, I'll toe the line and I'll see what legal action comes my way. But you know, getting that stuff out of old programs, let's say, and using you know, the most up-to-date hardware you can with those old programs, and I was just, it was a very eye-opening moment for me to be able to give that to you, because to that point I'd never necessarily captured something and given it to a quote-unquote like a professional facial animator, somebody that does this stuff day in and day out. So it was quite a nice moment for me to be able to get all of that data, do a little test, pass it over to you, and for you to say, oh yeah, this is totally usable. Like what? Like, that's amazing.
And here's the proof.
Yeah, and there it is. There's the proof. Here is your product back. So yeah, there's a large part of me which, because the community that was originally bred on this channel was very much around that hacky kind of stuff, and I'd love it if we could do even like a series of videos that just kind of go through, okay, I'm not necessarily going to go into how I get a lot of this stuff at the back end working, but here is how like this stuff can get cleaned up to some degree, or here is what it's like before and after the cleanup. So therefore, you know, people know that you can still do stuff with this stuff, and it's not just like throwaway stuff, I guess. But yeah, all of that stuff can be ironed out in time. But yeah, no, it was. You are correct. All three of us in this room kind of saw that Digidouble go from absolutely nothing to, like, okay, now he's got clothes. Okay, the clothes have been redone. Okay, now we've got a coat on there. The coat's been redone. Okay, the texturing's been done. Okay, now we're half doing a technical thing with body animation, and we're doing a half technical thing with facial animation. Now the coat's got physics on it, and now he's walking. Now he's talking, and it was, yeah, it was. God, I don't even know how long that whole process took. It was maybe a month or 2 months total, for us to kind of like chip away at it here and there. I know Mike's sick and tired of seeing it from those months that we spent on it, but
he sees you every day, doesn't he?
Yeah, right. He sees me every day.
Real you, virtual you. What's the difference?
You can't get away from me, Mike. So I've got a couple of questions over at the side here about education.
Okay.
Just more specific, because I think education is kind of it's not a contentious topic. Contentious? That's not even a word. It's not a point of contention or anything like that. I think education does have its benefits from, even if it's just from a social perspective. That like you're in a crowd of people that all technically want to do the same thing that you're doing, regardless of
Yes.
whether the education is good or not. You're at
Mhm.
least in that hotbed, right?
Yes.
So. Yeah, I mean, one question that I've got here is, how do you feel that the education that you had, and I don't know if you want to split this up between your initial education and that extra year, but how did you feel that the education system or the course that you were on helped to propel you in a direction that was making you ready for the industry, or at least like you knew what you were going to do, or the idea of what you were going to do in the industry?
Mm.
Because I think one of
It's
oh, sorry,
yes,
yeah,
go
carry
on.
on.
No, yeah, go
I
for
was
it. Go
going to
for it.
say, one of the things that I felt at the back end of my university time was I had a broad skill set, and
Mhm.
I think it's something that you hear a lot inside of the industry and out. But having a broad skill set kind of doesn't get you anywhere. If you're a jack of all trades, cool, go be
Mm.
an indie. But
Yeah.
if you want to be a facial animator, if you want to be, a systems designer or something like that, then
Mhm.
focus. You know what I mean? You
Yeah.
can't just say, "Oh, I've done all this stuff, but I liked this aspect of what I did." It's like, no, you've got to show that you are that aspect of what you did,
Mhm.
and that is who
Mhm.
you are entirely. So, yeah, how did education, or how did university kind of prepare you for that, or did you feel like you had to do a lot of your own legwork post facto?
I guess, well, leaving high school and sixth form, they kind of, from what was implied to me and the information that was given to me, that if I wanted to get into something of this profession, then it would require higher education, i.e., university, typical way to go about it. The 3-year course that I did in Norwich, I would say, much to what you were just saying just now, it was good for giving me a range of skills that most people in the industry could look at and go, "Oh, okay, they know how to do this. Cool." Um, the one thing that um, that university in particular, and obviously I can't speak for them in the current day and age,
Mm.
because they've probably changed a lot since now and when I was there. But at the time, the course in question was in its 3rd year of being run. So it was still very much in the what we deemed the guinea pig stage.
Mm.
So there were a lot of things that I think were getting looked over, and a lot of things that weren't getting supplied. I would say that ultimately it didn't prepare me for the industry, as it gave me, at the end of the day, it gave me a piece of paper that told anyone, hey, this guy can use this software and he knows how to make stuff with that software. And he can draw a mean picture, maybe.
Yeah.
But that didn't give me anything else that industries look for, which is mostly experience,
Mm.
previous projects that you've worked on, people that you've been in contact with, references,
Mm. Yeah.
that sort of stuff. So I guess this is one of the main reasons why I decided to do another year's course after I had left, because I had heard that this course in Dundee, for the whole year, you would be making actual Project Jam video games.
Okay.
So the course would be split up into 3 semesters, and for each semester you would make a game. And obviously this is on varying levels of of team sizes. The first semester was like a team of 3, then the next semester was like a team of 6, and then finally the last semester was a team of 10 to 15 or so. But that in itself gave me the experience that a lot of companies would now look at and say, "Oh, cool, you've worked on this, this, and this. Sweet. So you know what you're doing when it comes to actually making a game, or at least the process that goes into making a game." And again, I don't know whether the course in Norwich is actually supplying that sort of what I would call, what's the word I'm looking for? Like something that is very much needed within the educational system for this industry. I feel like that sort of thing is very important. But yeah, I guess ultimately to my point, you know, if someone was to ask me like, would I recommend doing higher education? I would. Well, I mean, yes and no, to an extent.
I feel the same way. It's a very difficult
Yeah.
question to answer, isn't it, without stepping on
Yeah.
toes necessarily. Like, it's not that universities don't have their place, that's for sure. I met a bunch of cool people at university. You know, I met Mike, and he hasn't been able to shake me off since.
It's true.
But at the same time, though, I'm not going to name names, Mike, but I know that we both saw a couple of people come in at entry level, at level 1, and they were already far beyond the knowledge that we had to give them. And
Yeah, that's true.
and they basically did the project that we had to teach within about a fortnight, and then the rest of the time they were freelancing.
Wow.
So, you know, I'm not gonna name names or anything, but there was a very particular person who was who came in a better ZBrush sculptor than a lot of people, and I think maybe by the end of his first year or his second year, he was already working on minis for board games for companies.
Wow.
So
But he had a massive background with that. He had several years on our students either way.
yeah,
Even before he was in education as well. So he was in education somewhere else, and then he was also doing it prior to that as well. So it's a knowledge base that you can build up, certainly, and certainly around certain softwares. It's not necessarily open to everybody though, depending on what you want to do.
yeah. I mean, I was going to say the big thing there is, and you know, again, this isn't something that I necessarily believe, but I have heard phrases inside of the industry, let's say, or industry people that have said things like "those who can't teach," and I think that's quite a damning thing to say. You know, it's a very good play on the old advert, to like, you know, those who can teach, but you know, I think the industry, or at least some of the people that I've interacted with, have that kind of mentality about it. That you know, you go to teach when you're done, or like once you've got all of the information that you can possibly get from the industry, and you don't want to keep learning anymore, and you're ready to impart that wisdom. That's that time.
Yes.
Which is very weird for my kind of chronology of how I went, because I went straight out of the system into the system. So that was quite a weird transition for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, as I say though, I think universities do have their place. It's just the wealth of information which is available online right now. You can go and sign yourself up to Animation Mentor, and
Yeah,
potentially come
there's
out the back
actually
end.
several like animation, online animation courses which I would happily recommend to people.
Yeah.
These days, instead of actually doing university, it's probably going to cost you about as much to learn on those courses as well, because they're not cheap. And depending on where you are in the world, you know, you're going to be getting up at like, you know, stupid o'clock to take part in sessions. But for getting like industry level advice from literal people who are literally in the industry, I would say that, you know, compared to going to university and sitting down and, you know, having to, you know, listen to someone who hasn't even been in the industry or has very little experience of the industry, you know, I would say that there's definitely it's very, very one-sided in that aspect, and at least anyway.
Yeah.
There are obviously other aspects of going to uni, like you said. You do meet a lot of people, you gain contacts, you're to an extent all in the same boat together. You're all there to learn. You're all there to like help each other out. More so on top of that as well, you're there to critically think about things rather than, you know, have all the answers given to you.
Yeah.
It was during my second year of being in Norwich that it suddenly clicked to me like what the point of me being at uni was. And it was done by a guy who I forget the name of now, but he came in to do a talk. And his message to everyone was pretty much there are two different types of people at university. There are those that have come to learn, and there are those that want to be taught. And there's a very big difference between the two.
Yeah.
If you're coming to learn, you will put in the time, you'll make the effort, you will go out there and you will find the information and you will learn it. Those who want to be taught will not do this. They will sit and wait and complain.
Mm. Mm. No, I can definitely say from my time in education, both as a student and outside, I think that's a great way of almost dividing that. Division. It's very easy to just put a line straight down the middle, but if you had to, like, totally, like, I can definitely see where you're coming from with that statement.
Yeah. Well, I didn't make the statement. I just listened.
No, sorry, he made the statement. Yes,
Yeah.
and just it resonated. In
I was just there going, huh. And I knew which band I wanted to be in. Like, I'm sure it's more diverse than what that is, but
I guess him saying it as well is almost like a motivational tactic, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it's one of those things where I guess you don't think about it until someone points it out, and at that point, I hadn't really thought about it because I was so used to the regime of like, oh, I go in, I sit down, I have someone tell me what is what, and I go, oh, okay. Well, I might put some critical thinking into that, but no one until that point had told me, like, oh, by the way, you should probably, tackle some of this.
I was going to say, like, I've just got this mental image of kind of like being on a train, like a little like kiddie train, and everyone gets on the kiddie train, and then like the people that, as you say, the people that do expect that spoon-fed kind of nature, probably, I don't want to say probably, could potentially be sitting on that train with the autopilot thought of one day I'll be in the games industry.
Yeah. Yeah,
and like
well,
when this train ends, I'll get off and I'll be at EA. Like,
well, to an extent,
if only.
Yeah, right. I mean, most obviously, again, I'm just speaking from experience, not from like current day situations. But I do remember at the time that there was very much a sort of like, if you do this course or if you do this, then you'll people will look at your CV and go, wow, this guy or gal, like, wow, we need to hire them, and very much not the case. I am one of 3 people that I know of out of a course of about 40 to 50 that went on to actually work in the industry from that course. And that was part of that was only because I literally went and did more learning after that.
Yeah.
For a lot of other people, from what I had heard, friends that I was with, they would apply for jobs and such, and companies would literally laugh at them.
Yeah.
Like, literally, like, this guy, no chance. Guys that have put in like 3 years worth of work, dedicated to try and get in, and just met with a no chance, mate. You've not got what we want.
Yeah.
Basically.
And I was going to say that, like, I've noticed that it seems like the in point for the longest time, but more so for those people that do, like, they go for like, I want to be a character artist, I want to be this, I want to be that, and they haven't necessarily put the time into wanting to learn their craft, and have got off the train, as I say, like, got their ticket and been like, yes, and then no one wants their ticket. I find that, like, and this isn't a bad thing, because you do have your foot in the door at this point, and you can kind of keep an ear out for internal opportunities and make friends with the right people. But getting into QA is also a position which is, I think a lot of people kind of shit on that position, and it's, I guess there's probably, there's got to be a reason why that kind of default kind of opinion of QA exists. If you're coming in at the bottom or whatever, but at the same time, dude, there are people that I've seen on LinkedIn who, I'm not, again, we never name names, but, celebrating 6 years at Lidl. And it's like, I graduated with you. Like, you seemed like you really wanted to get into this stuff, and you were quite bright at the time. Like, what happened?
Yeah. It's quite a broad spectrum of, like, where people go after university. Like, most of the people that I remember are probably not even in this country at the moment.
Yeah.
People have moved all over the place, and they're doing all manner of different things. It's going back to that point just real quickly. By the way, that whole, like, I was one of 3 to, like, get a job. That wasn't a flex. That was more of a, like, that's just tragic.
This is reality.
Yeah. Like, I don't hold that as like I'm a smart person sort of thing. Like, no, I'm as common as muck. But I was one of the lucky few that managed to do it, whereas I had to watch friends and fellow class students and stuff like that. I had to see them all ultimately lose their passion over what they wanted to do because they just spent all that money doing the courses, spent 3 years of their life learning to ultimately be told, nah, not a chance, mate, not a chance.
I guess that's what I'm trying to get at with that whole kind of like celebrating 6 years at like Lidl or Tesco or whatever like that, because these are people that I have that same empathy for. Like, you had a passion at some point. I worked with you at some point. We did, you were great at some point, and it's just, I don't know where reality or life, if it did, because again, a lot of these people could say, man, like, I just hands out, I was just done after that. But I don't know where the break between the end of education and the beginning of a professional career inside the games industry, I don't know what broke in between those 2 points for them. Like, what was the thing that they didn't do, or what was the thing that they weren't prepared for, or what was the thing that they could have done, but just maybe they were so close, but they were so close and they just couldn't quite see that they were as close as they were. And that's when they started to kind of retract from it all.
Well, I think for some people, and I think this is true for many of the educational, students within the educational system these days. Of you've left home, you've left your parents, you've got your own place, you've given this abundance of money suddenly from student loans, and here's the pub, and here's all the takeaway you could ever order.
Yeah, get to it, pal.
Yeah. Oh, what's that? I'm meant to be at like a course session. I'll just sleep through it. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
There are obviously some people who blasé their way through the educational system, but those people, I often think like they probably don't have the passion to do it, because and I would say this to anyone who's going through the education system at the moment, like, if you seriously can't get yourself out of bed at 7 o'clock in the morning to go to lecture, to go and take part with this thing, then you're not going to survive. Because if you're not passionate about doing work for yourself at this point, you're not going to survive doing work day after day for someone else.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that, because then if you do kind of like get a job in the industry, if you do become, let's just pull a position out of our ass, like a body animator, just a standard body animator or whatever, your job very quickly becomes less about like, man, I just get to wake up in the morning and do what I want to do, to I'm being told to get up and told to go to work and told to do these things, and that can be jarring. It can be grating after a period of time. Yeah, I definitely appreciate that.
I would definitely compare the animation or just the games industry to a bowl of rice. Rice is amazing if you like eating the same thing a million times.
Yep, I hear you. I hear
you. Same with this job, and most other jobs is like, I hope you enjoy it doing once, because oh boy, you're gonna be doing it forever.
Yeah, forever.
That's what you get paid for there. That's the professionalism right there.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I mean, the thing is though, and this is kind of testament to appositions as well. Obviously, I know a little bit more about what's going on with our positions and stuff like that, and how we feel about certain aspects of our job and whatnot. But what I would say is, damn, like, we are, what's the word I want to use? We are damn perfectionists in the jobs that we're given.
We are damn perfectionists in the time that we have been allotted.
Yep. Like, it's I brought this up before, and I'll bring this up again, but it's very much like, hey, there's a trailer coming out. Hey, there's a trailer coming out. We've accidentally not had this face file with this face animation. We're piecing it together now because it's got to be out for, I don't know, what day is it? Friday today? It's out for Tuesday next week.
This sounds like a very, very familiar conversation.
So
I can feel my hand literally going like that.
Yeah. But again, it's that different mentality of like, I have to do this because this is my job, and through this I will learn something, or I will, I'll get something from the experience of doing this, versus how the hell do you expect me to da da
Oh
da da
yeah,
da
yeah,
da? It's like, no, like,
yeah. Never say die.
like,
Never say
just
die.
it gets
Mm.
done. Essentially, you have to have a
Yeah.
bloody good reason if you can't get something done.
Mm-hmm.
Before we move away from education, though, and we actually start to talk a little bit more about the industry, because I know that we're coming up to about 50 minutes in now, and I'd like to keep this around about an hour and a half if I could do. We've done
Sure,
really
yeah,
well
yeah.
for the 50 minutes that we've been here, though. We've talked about a lot of stuff, considering that education was the least amount of bullet points I had. Mike, just from all of the things that you've heard and being currently in education, and again, not talking damningly, I don't think we've necessarily done that. I think we've given a
No.
very honest opinion about what what Ol's experience was.
Mm.
How do you feel about some of those comments that are made, and do any of those resonate with you current day, or do you certainly empathize with certain parts of what Ol had to say there with education? Because I know that Ol didn't study at the educational institute that you teach at. So obviously things are going to be different, but I'm sure there are some parallels that you can definitely draw between those things.
Yeah, I mean, well, ultimately, you can be very generic about education and say this, that, and the other about it. I don't think that, just as you pointed out, that even year on year, things will change with individual institutions and potentially what you can learn at any one point. So it's very difficult to make generic statements a lot of the time. I mean, a lot of people will come to university and they probably don't know what they want to do. I think that's going to be one of the key kind of like elements. If you've got to go into a master's, for example, or do an extra year or something like that just to find yourself, that's quite unlucky, really. I mean, it's hopefully by the end of sixth form you would at least know vaguely what you want to do, but it's not true for everybody. And then I think the education system is a good place to be to find yourself, more than anything else, because the alternative really is literally working at little and then trying to find yourself in your spare time. And that's got to be infinitely harder. I never did it myself, but I can't imagine what it's like wanting to be, wanting to get into something and then being limited by potentially your day job or something like that.
Yeah.
And the opportunity that education gives you is quite a big one in comparison to that. Obviously, it doesn't come for free. That's the only inconvenience, I suppose.
Yeah, and I was going to say that yeah, there are obvious costs and whatnots that are kind of attributed to you once you do go into the educational system. And I don't know what the prices are at the moment, but I think me and Ol were definitely within the bracket where we paid I think $3,000 a year.
I was the last year in the nation, I think, that was on $3,000 a year.
Yeah.
Before I got bumped to 9, so extremely lucky in that aspect.
Yeah. And I'm not sure what the prices are at the moment, Mike.
That is a very good question. I don't actually hear a lot of conversation around that. I mean, technically speaking, I know people really have a go at pricings for things, but as far as I think that the actual cost of your education was about £6,000. I think the actual cost of that was, whereas you paid a fraction. So you were kind of supported by the government as opposed to had your way paved and were completely free. So the actual cost was always higher, and people always say that the prices have gone up, but they haven't actually gone up that much overall. And you have to think about the rate of inflation and other things like that. The cost of these things is actually fairly reasonable. I mean, it's still it's extortionate when you think about just the overall overarching cost and the overall overarching debt potentially. But in terms of what you expect somebody to be getting paid, for example, so your lecturer, for example, or the university's costs and stuff like that, it's not actually that much. It's kind of like a reasonable thing to kind of expect that, and I don't hear that conversation being had a lot of times, especially when it's mentioned on the news and stuff like that. It seems to be very hard line. this is too much. Well,
Yeah, I think a lot of those comments, they usually come from people who are not in that situation though. So I think a lot of it is just more sort of, oh, we've seen the numbers, or this is the surface level that we have information that we have on this situation. Therefore, oh, it must be,
And that in itself breeds then people that turn up to university expecting. Like,
well,
the stakes are
it does
higher now.
yeah.
The money's higher
Yeah.
now, so you better get me a job to be able to pay this off. As opposed to when me and you went, where it was like, well, this is how it's been, and this isn't an extortionate amount. Yeah,
still paying that much amount, I was still of the attitude of like, I better get a job by the end of it. There's fucking 3. I can't afford this.
Yeah, it's
a lot of money.
It's always a lot of money. I mean, obviously, as well as that, as you've mentioned, that you might think about going elsewhere, and you might think about online courses and stuff like that. And comparatively, they are going to be about the same amount of money. It's a big wad of cash, and and more importantly for that, you're not going to get any. I assume you're not going to get any support. I don't know whether you can apply for some sort of similar kind of like loan situation because you are in education.
You can.
I suppose it depends. It depends on what you're doing, I guess, more than anything.
The same kind of loan business that happens for educational institutes. You can apply for that exact same stuff for iAnimate, for example.
Yeah. Well, well, that's probably a good thing then. So specifically, if you want to be an animator, that's definitely one option.
Yeah, and I think
overall, that's something that needs to be weighed up, I suppose.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that we can certainly all agree on, is if you don't know what you want to do necessarily, but you know the kind of sector that you want to be in, especially if it's something to do with games, then going to university to be around those people and to understand what those different disciplines are, much like I did myself, is a great thing. It's a fantastic thing to be able to try out all these different things and kind of say to yourself, oh, I like that, I don't like that, I don't want to go near that again, but I really like that. But there probably are. I mean, I knew a couple of people that had been like doing 3D stuff before uni, or had gotten to do that stuff in college, which to me seems like an alien concept. Like the games is in college these days. I think it's great. I think it's fantastic. But tell that to Ol when he was coming out of university or whatever. Like, that would have been just an alien concept. It still felt like that colleges at that point still needed to do the core disciplines. You know what I mean? Like science, maths, and get those cores down. Then when you go to university, that's when you can flitter your life away or whatever.
Exactly.
But yeah, there are more people that are potentially coming out of college now, I could argue, that have been able to try that stuff out, kind of know, because we are predominantly, 2/3 animation inside of this call. But yeah, coming out the back end of college and being like, you know what, I really enjoyed that animation stuff. Maybe I don't need to go to university, and maybe I can just focus primarily on animation.
Yeah. Like, you've done a try before you buy sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it just goes back to people not necessarily knowing where they want to be. They have this vague ideas. Oh, maybe I want to make games, or maybe I want to make movies, or do whatever. Become an accountant doesn't really make any difference. You've got routes available to you, and you kind of pick based on, maybe that's going to work out for me, and maybe it will, but there is no guarantee at the end of the day. Is that it may not work out for you. If the only way to be sure is literally to try before you buy, almost. And if you do a 3-year undergraduate just to find out what you don't like, then maybe that's better for you in the long run. At least then potentially you've got even better idea about whether or not you want to go to the master's level at whatever institution, or if you want to go back and do a more dedicated undergraduate, or even go online. You've got options at that point.
Definitely,
and you're probably going to be a little bit more rounded as well.
Just to round out this discussion of education, I think the thing that I'd like to kind of say, which I think is again something that we can all agree on, is again, no point have we said is that education, university is worthless in this degree or anything like that. I mean, to some degree, pardon the pun, having the degree shows that you can stick at something, that you got graded at a certain level for something, and that you can be analytical, and you can actually do. You know what I mean? If you go to somebody, if you go to a I don't know, if you go to a position and you've got a degree and that degree says a first on it, I think instantly. I mean, if a first degree came over my desk, I think I'd be a little bit like, okay, so at least I know this guy, like, will sit down, do the work, can probably tick the boxes of the things that I've asked him to do, and will do that analytically, as opposed to somebody that gives me the degree over with a third potentially. And at that point, I think I'd argue that the show reel is the thing. Like, the first is one thing, but the show reel, like, I think the show reel, personally, and I'm open to have this discussion right now, but I think the show reel trumps all.
Well, hopefully it should do. Like, I mean, it's the evidence of the guy, whoever's work, I suppose.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you're just looking at a CV with a degree classification on it, then that's as much as you've got going for you.
Yeah.
There are obviously reasons why people fail degrees as well, or don't do well in degrees. And I don't necessarily think that people really consider that a lot of the time. But the main thing really is you can say, well, okay, so something happened with their degree, but maybe they're worthwhile as a human being, because they can do the job.
Yeah. But let me
they
give you a couple,
see that from their work.
Let me give you a couple of examples though, where, as I say, I think show reel trumps all. You get a degree over your table, which is a first, and you get a degree over your table, which is a third. The guy who's got a first has got a very plain kind of show reel, which is like, all right, you've done the fundamentals. The guy who's got a third has actually done like a bunch of Dragon Ball Z fighters with a bunch of weighting and a bunch of fight scenes, and you're like, holy shit, like, this guy can animate. Like, no reason he didn't do his education, he was bored. Another one, okay, this guy says he's been working at Lidl for the past 6 years, but has a stellar show reel. I'd be like, dude, let me take you out of that world, because you need to be over here. You need to be working with us, and that for me is proof of that show reel is king. It trumps a lot of stuff underneath it. But I'm willing for anybody in this chat to kind of say, I think you're kind of wrong on that.
It breaks both ways. I think you've got certainly within in the boundaries of academic. Well, it doesn't matter, undergraduate or master's level, it doesn't really make any difference. A lot of the time, it will depend on the criteria that they've been working to, and what that individual can do with that criteria. At the end of the day, I think that one of the things that the industry people tend to forget is that academic criteria is not necessarily the same as what they would expect it to be. And it's not necessarily based on I don't know, proficiency in specific areas that I don't know, the games industry might be looking for a lot of the time. You do have to teach a lot of other things as well.
It's not necessarily the quality of the animation. You get 10% or 20% for just keeping a thread up to date, kind of thing.
Yeah, it could be. Well, it could be a report. It could be there's any number of different academic criteria that could bump a grade. Rather than the actual proficiency in artwork or programming or whatever. So just looking at an end result is not great on paper always. And I would agree that the show reel is always going to be key.
When I did go to Dundee, you've just reminded me of a certain situation regarding this sort of thing. The course leader that I was there, I won't, again, no names mentioned, but boy, did he give a very humbling speech for first impressions.
Right.
Obviously, I can't quote word for word, but I'll, give you the rundown of it.
But you still have night sweats about it.
Oh, no. I more remember thinking, oh, you glorious bastard. The message in his speech was essentially, you've all been to university, and you've all got slips of paper to say that you're really good at doing something. Great. Whoop-de-doo. I'm really fucking pleased for you. I don't give a shit about that. I want to see you do work.
Yep. And again, that comes full circle to the thing of you've got a weekend to do a facial animation for a trailer. I don't work weekends.
Yeah. Oh, he followed up that speech by saying, "Don't you dare bring your ego in here, because I've got a bigger one and I'll win."
Oh.
So
he sounds
everyone
like my
was just
kind of
sitting
guy.
there like,
Yeah, he sounds like my kind of guy.
Welcome to the industry.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the industry, let's kind of get back on topic with you all, because we've spoken about education there, and we've got like 2 cents from Mike based on what your experiences were, or I'd argue what our combined experiences are, because we're exactly the same age. We are. We were in the system at the same time and stuff like that around about. So let's go into the industry a little bit. So again, got a couple of questions down here that can kind of like give us a springboard. But over your career, as we'll call it, for was it like 6 years? Did you say 6 to
Yeah,
7,
about that,
somewhere
yeah.
around that?
Mhm.
Are there any challenges, either technical or personal, during that journey that you could highlight as something that you had to overcome, or something that was definitely like I don't know, those moments of like, man, do I even really want to be doing this anymore? Or were there any other challenges? Just something which definitely kind of either made you step back and think, whoa, this is what this actually is like, and I've got to adjust here. I've got to kind of sidestep and kind of figure out what I'm going to do here, or anything like that over your span of your career.
Confidence.
Okay.
Hmm. Like just the sheer force blunt of it, confidence. You've got to, and obviously this is something that grows in time while you're in the industry. Like no one really ever enters the industry being, confident of like anything. There will always be a lack of confidence or some uncertainty regarding certain things. How much time it takes to do something, what to do, how to do it, in what manner to be presented in, etc., etc. It's mostly just the ability to take something, learn it, carry on.
Yeah.
I think that was the biggest like concern of mine when coming through the industry of just like, because at uni and with education, you'll be given a task and you'll be given obviously a set time limit to learn said task, but it'll be more at a comfortable pace. Whereas, as you were saying previously, you get something thrown across your desk, you better hope to God that you know what to do and how to do it, and if you don't, you better pick it up quick because you're going to be in trouble, or you're going to have to explain yourself to a certain extent. And a lot of it, I think, is just getting over that hurdle of just being in that situation where you can say, well, no, I know what I'm talking about, and standing your ground in certain situations when someone else might be saying to you, you don't know what you're talking about, and retorting with, well, yes, I do, and here's the reasons why. Again, not naming names, but I've worked for people before in the past in previous studios where certain people have taken their opinion as the final word because they're in a higher position than other people within the company. Ultimately, that one particular place I'm talking about in mind is now shut down. So,
Yeah.
way to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess that's probably been the most, I guess, the scariest and the hardest thing for me personally to deal with. Yeah, mostly that, I think.
Okay. I was going to say that, because as you were talking about confidence, then it kind of reminded me of something that someone said to me. Not to me, I guess that's a bad way of putting it, but like someone said something and I heard it, and that was how did they put it? Like, the situation is not bigger than the situation is bigger than your bullshit.
Jesus.
Like, you know what I mean? Almost like your independent kind of, let's just take the trailer example again. Like,
Yes.
we need to get this trailer out by whatever date, or we need to get this thing out by whatever date, and then for someone to turn around who is maybe at a low to mid level and says something like, I don't want to do that, or I'm not going to do that, then it's like, well, there's the door. Like, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? It's very much like your individual stance needs to contribute to the larger product that we're making, because if you're not doing that, then you're working on some personal bullshit, and we can't be having that. We need you to be looking at the product, and we need you to be working towards the product. Don't get me wrong, there's personal progression and stuff like that, but I think a large part of that confidence, at least from extrapolation from what I had for that, is to be able to take a step back out of your own ego.
Oh,
and
definitely,
and
yes.
to be like, okay,
Mhm.
I do the thing, and
Yeah,
I know when to speak.
I've often found that people with egos, there's two directions for them. It's either they're going up because they're going to work their way, and they have the work to back themselves up, or they go down very quickly
because they don't have the work to back themselves up.
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm sort of like, well, I mean, I have low self-esteem myself, so I kind of put myself in like I'll just do it.
Yeah. And I've said this a lot recently, inside of the team, that I think your work speaks a hell of a lot louder than your words ever do.
Exactly. Yeah.
You can't dispute someone's track record work-wise. So.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you think? Okay, this is an interesting one. If you were to speak to someone that you didn't know right now,
Okay.
let's just use Mike as an example here. You know Mike, obviously, but hey, Mike. But let's just say that Mike wanted to get into like facial animation or animation in general. What are some of the key important aspects that you would tell someone like Mike who is maybe thinking about it, or is going to get into animation, or is on the surface of looking for like industry work even? What are some of those key aspects that you would kind of say, hey, these are the things that you really want to consider about getting into animation or getting into an animation position or doing this kind of work?
Definitely study anatomy. Study the Animator's Survival Guide. Get that because it's like the Bible of animation.
Yep.
Scope the path that you wish to take, and like, I guess, window shop through education, or the means of which you can gain knowledge or have helped gaining knowledge to go from where you are now to where you want to be in the industry. There was something else, but it's just gone out of my head.
I can wait.
Good old brain farts. How long did you say this interview was for?
We got another. Yeah, no, you got time. You got time.
This is when I bite down on the cyanide pill and I just slowly
Yeah.
just roll back. Yeah, so anatomy, study, gain contacts where you can. I think that's a very important part of helping yourself get advice, and actually, to an extent, get into the industry as well. I've often found that knowing people can really help you go from just a CV piece of paper to, oh, it's that guy. Oh, get him in here.
Yeah.
I would say, yeah, definitely, but mostly learn anatomy. And if to an extent you want to go into a certain direction of animation, I guess more study into that particular area that you want to. Like, if you want to go into creature, cool, creature anatomy. If you want to do bipedal, human anatomy. If you want to do environmental stuff, then David Attenborough.
Or even like hard surface animation, I guess, to some degree.
Yeah.
Like, ships and all of that stuff, kind of hatches opening and how mechanics work and stuff like that. I know that's something that Mike talks a lot about with students, which is like, or I can't remember if it was you, Mike, actually, but someone definitely spoke about it, which is the whole kind of like, if you're designing something on a character, it has to work. It can't just be some frilly kind of like, oh, it's a piston, cool, okay. Do pistons look like that? What constructs a piston? How do pistons work? What needs to be around the piston for it to be accommodated as a piston? So yeah,
That does sound like me.
Yeah, well, yeah, Mike, yeah.
I guess as well, like, the one thing as well is learning to find the small rewards with animation when it comes to animation, because again, with someone who works in, say, art, like concept art or character art or something like that, you can work on a piece. You'll paint a canvas, and the canvas will be done. You'll be like, voila. With animation, it is that process. It's very similar, but it's extended upon a larger amount of time, and you're going to be painting that picture over and over and over again. So you better get used to painting that picture. But just to learn to fall in love with that process in itself, like to say, right, I've got to have this head turn from here to there, but by God, I'm going to make it look like the best head turn I ever have. You know.
Yeah.
When it's done, look at it, perfectly straight there, and it turns. Oh, look,
Yeah,
you know,
perfect. Yeah. No, I
sign it off and everything.
I can definitely understand what you're saying now about those small wins, because I think one of the things that I'd argue is patience is a big thing as well, and you know, those small wins come from those patient moments of like, I'm gonna get this head turn right, not the full backflip. I'm gonna get the head turn right.
Yeah.
And that does take patience.
It's better to look at the small picture than the large picture, because all the small pictures will form the jigsaw that makes up the large picture.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I guess as one final piece of parting advice to like, I guess balance it out somewhat, is to learn to be patient with people as well.
Yeah. Well, this kind of bleeds into a question that I'll ask you now, because it might be an answer to that question. But one of the questions here was that, you know, I said about talking about getting Mike into animation and like what that through line would be or what the advice would be. But I think this is a slightly different question and still a pertinent one. What advice would you have given yourself back then, knowing what you know now? Run. Get out of here. Get out of here alive.
What are you, crazy? What advice I'd give to myself? Wow. I mean, that's quite a broad answer.
Yeah.
A lot, you know. Yeah. Any time-based travel stuff involving myself, I would probably. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I think the patience with people was definitely one. Like, learn to be patient with these people as you're going through, because things are going to get heated, or things are going to get, you know, you are going to get CEOs that are just like, do it my way, get him in the ring.
Well, I guess the one thing I would say, especially like during the educational system, would have been stop worrying about things that were not so important and focus on the things that were important, because, you know, to an extent, I did waste time at uni for a while. For some reason, during different points, there would be time where my mind would go on to different things, and it wouldn't be anything pertinent to what I was meant to be doing at the time. Everyone's probably guilty of it. I'm not the only one. But I think if I was to give myself advice for back then, it would be like, hey, what are you doing? Don't worry about this. This is really not important right now. You should be worrying about this. And going with that. Anything in the industry, I guess early on days would probably be more like, oh, don't go there, or don't, you know, don't go this, don't go this direction, don't go that direction. That whole thing. But I guess one big thing which I had to learn myself recently, which I've been kicking myself for a while now, is don't get too comfortable. And I don't mean that as in a like obviously get comfortable as in like where you're settled in the world and what you want to do, but don't ever stop. Don't ever stop creating, learning, producing. You
keep pushing yourself, essentially.
Yeah, keep pushing yourself. And I say this because, you know, I've been at this company now for nearly 4 years, and for the first couple years of being here, I kind of slowed down on myself, and I did let myself go, so to speak, when it came to my own personal work.
Yeah, creatively.
Yes, and that's something that I've been trying to pick up the pieces for very recently. I've been trying to, do my own personal projects, looking up like different things that I can try out.
Yeah.
And
we do things from time to time as well. Like we sometimes pick up pieces here and there which may not see the light of day a lot of the times, but it's certainly a creative bed to be able to be like, right, I'm going to try this different thing, because
exactly, it's rediscovering the passion that you have for the reason why you're even in this industry. So yeah, that I would say is definitely something of like, if you fall behind, you'll get left behind. So don't ever let yourself get into that situation.
Yeah. Okay, so I've got 2 last questions for you all, and I'm not going to lie, because obviously this is the first time that we've sat down with anybody and tried to have a conversation. yeah, these ones may come off a little bit weird, so we'll see how these ones go. But the first question I've got here is, okay, it's kind of a double-barrel question, but how do you see your career progressing in the next 5 to 10 years? Slash, is there any company that you would love to work for or line of work that you would love to try?
Ooh. Okay, so in the next 5 to 10 years, I'd like to think that I'm still in the games industry or the film industry, hopefully. I've definitely been in the games industry for a while now, to the point where I've sort of seen like, oh, this is the line of work that we do, and this is what, if you put the time in, it'll go from like, you know, this to this, and it will look like this when it's done, and you know, this is kind of the ins and outs of that process. Where what I would really like to do, I think, is to get into animation studios, like for film. Proper feature animation studios. I don't think I'll be able to do that within the next 5-10 years, because I feel like a lot of those places are looking for a specific thing within people, and if I were to start doing that now, then it's going to take me like an education's worth of time to try and get to that stage. So
yeah,
maybe.
I was going to say, there are animators out there that have done nothing but focus on animating deer for their entire life, and someone's going to go, "We need a deer animator! Get him in the ring!"
something like that. Yeah. But I'm determined, and I'm gonna stay with that sort of like field in mind.
Yeah, definitely.
Company-wise, yeah, I mean the dream team of companies, you know.
I was going to say, rack them off, man. Like, I'd like to hear what your dream kind of companies to work for are.
I'll start with something close to home. There's a company in Cambridge called Frontier, who are a games company. Why them in particular? They make the Roller Coaster Tycoon series, Planet Coaster, Zoo Tycoon, etc. Those are games that I've played through parts of my life, and I've enjoyed them. I've heard a lot of good, respectable things about Frontier. They seem like a decent place to work for, and again, it's close to family. And I think if I was to pick anywhere nearby, it would be them to try and go to, and have at least a contracted work there and see how things go.
Yeah.
Beyond that, dream jobs. I mean, Pixar, DreamWorks, Disney, the top three.
Yeah.
Yeah, those things would probably be the top ones. I wouldn't mind trying Framestore, though. Yeah, I'm not really. I mean, to timestamp this,
I was going to say, we go into the whole conversation of like London living at that point, don't we?
Yeah.
And whether it's worth it and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I know that a lot of VFX studios are not doing so well at the moment because of the current climate with COVID, which is a terrible shame. But yeah, I guess something more attuned to the lines of, I guess I would like to work in something that's more hand keyed, something that's less motion captured, something that's more involved, something that's more about bringing a character to life rather than just making an asset for a game, sort of thing.
I totally understand where you're coming from.
Not to say that that's what I'm currently doing at the moment, but most of the animation that I've dealt with through my career has just literally been, and here's this cycle, and here's this cycle. Whereas with film, it's more, here's 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Get it in a
daily. Get it in a daily. Get it seen. Get the feedback. Go work on the same 10 seconds or whatever. I've forgotten what the Naughty Dog numbers were now. I know I've read them at some point, but I swear the Naughty Dog numbers were something like, each animator was responsible of getting something like 7 seconds a week done.
Yeah.
Like a week.
It's crazy.
Which when you're looking at stuff like that, I don't know if the 7 seconds is exact. I'd have to go and look that up. But it was it was much smaller than I thought it was. But then when you actually think about how many animators are working there, the kind of rigorous schedule, the back and forth of getting feedback and stuff like that, then 7 seconds of quality animation is actually it's damn good.
It is, yeah.
So
It's certainly better than doing 2 wrestling moves in one day.
yeah, well, yeah.
But that's a whole other story.
That's
that
a whole
is.
other story. Yeah, we might make an anecdote series or something where we just get these smaller stories out. Mike, before I ask my final question, you've been able to listen to Ollie's story from start to finish pretty much now, and you've been able to hear kind of where he came up and kind of where his position is like at the industry and what he's doing currently, and we've touched upon the education stuff, so probably not so much in that era. But is there anything that you've thought about that you'd like to ask Ola, or is there any questions that you've got which are kind of like, or anything that we haven't touched where you're just like, what, I've always wanted to know?
I don't know. There's lots of things that I've always wanted to know more than anything. I think
Is it real? Yes, it is.
Yeah. Yes, it is real.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know. I'd wonder what. I know you've asked a generic question of what you would tell somebody who wanted to get into it. I think there's probably a lot of information that specifically a student who was animating, especially for things like face, would be interested in. I don't know whether we even need to cover that here, but I don't know whether you want to have a conversation at another point about things like I know, software and topology and things like that, or like the nitty gritty of that kind of thing, and the way that kind of works within pipelines and stuff.
Well, we've not hit 5:30 yet, so we've still got a little bit of time. We can still kind of talk for the next couple of minutes or whatnot. So if there is any, as I say, anything specific, then go for it.
I don't know, where do you stand on I saw a GIF the other day actually of different types of Pixar arms, I think they were, and
Right.
the topologies for different arm movements. So I think that it's one of those things which is quite difficult to get your head around and get into. I think that there's a lot of students that don't really understand the topology side of things, and what you would probably trust to as like a best practice for maybe setting up a face or something like that.
I think that definitely understanding the topology of a mesh and stuff like that is, I would class it as something that every animator should know about, especially if they're working in 3D. Often, a lot of the time, if something is not working correctly with a character that you're working on, could be down to the way that the topology is laid out, or how the rig is set up. Animation in 3D is very much a end process sort of part of the pipeline. Like, to get a character or something in question animated, you need to have every step before that signed off on and done. And we have definitely seen this in my current line of work. I won't name names because I don't want to damn anyone, because honestly I love working with the people that I work with, but we have had instances previously where an asset has been delivered to our department and we've looked at it and said, oh, absolutely not. No, we can't work with this. This hasn't been signed off correctly. Like, I'll give you, for example, the central line that goes like down the center of the face was at an angle. A number of other things as well, but we looked at it and said, look, can you please go back and sort this out for us, please? So yeah, I would say to students, especially, like, this is, I know it's obviously got not so much to do with animation, but ultimately it will help in certain situations, like learning how to how knees are meant to be done, especially, or parts of the body that are meant to bend and flex, especially coming into an age of technology with this sort of stuff where characters and models and meshes and texture in the VFX and games is getting so damn scary at how advanced it's getting. Like, it's almost lifelike at this point. with faces as well, especially, like, yeah, definitely, like, it's good to know, like, where the eyes meant to be, the shape of where the nose has got to be. Like, there are actually guides online as well, like a lot of the stuff you can find online, about, like, oh, the topology, like this line of mesh here needs to be a different like group compared to like where this bit is, and then where the chin is, and how the mouth is formed. And it kind of goes back a little bit to studying anatomy, because usually, more often or not, when it comes to the topology of a rig or character mesh, it's very much based upon, especially for the face, it's very much based upon the anatomy of like what the muscle structure is beneath the skin on certain characters.
I was going to bring up the fax system there as well. I mean, fax is something that we've heard a lot of times, isn't it, before? And topology kind of has to at least accommodate the fax system if you're using the fax system, that is.
But yeah,
I don't know if that answers Mike's question. Yeah.
Yeah, that probably rounds that up. I mean, I think that I suppose there's a lot of tension between technology and traditional skills just generally, and it doesn't really matter what kind of area of the creative side you kind of like steer towards. And with the animation stuff, I think it's useful to have that understanding of other areas, I suppose. And it's nice to know that you've kind of like supporting that as well, because it's there's a bit of modeling, there's a bit of kind of like the anatomy stuff. You've got to have that understanding, I think.
Yes, it doesn't necessarily have to be even in depth, but so long as there's like at least a surface level. One thing about the industry, which I guess I haven't really touched upon, would be to say it's good to know about other disciplines within the people that you're working with, because you'll know, and especially in these cases where, say, you do have something wrong with something, like in this instance, we'll say like a face mesh, we can actually go back and just like and use terminology that they can understand with specific bits, like, oh, you've got like a quad here and that needs to be a tri, and can you like make this more symmetrical, and at least not approach people like some
yeah.
well,
You create a syntax, don't you? You have
exactly
a mutual syntax instead of going the thing. No, the thing, the thing.
The
Change
line's
the
wrong.
thing, the line. Yeah.
This circle is shaped like a. It should be shaped like a.
Oh God.
But yeah, no, I definitely think, like, even for people who want to refine into one specific area, like, the more you know, the more strings to your bow. And it really can't hurt in a lot of instances to learn a few things in different subject areas.
I suppose one other thing as well is that have you seen any interesting technology change over your time? It doesn't really matter whether it was education or just currently.
Well, we used to use memory cards for console playing. That's pretty cool. Now we don't have to worry about that.
Everything's in something called the cloud these days, right?
Right. VR headsets,
it's
my god.
it's up there somewhere.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the biggest things that I remember, a lot of people will probably be like, "Oh, for God's sakes!" But seeing James Cameron's Avatar in 2009 really, like, I feel like that wasn't like one of the biggest leap forwards with like technology regarding this industry, but it was definitely something that I think definitely set a benchmark at that time for like, okay, we're at this stage now. Look at this. Isn't this incredible? That whole film was done out of a hangar, and it feels like I traveled to a different world, and see these characters that really exist and express and talk, and far from the days of seeing an animated cartoon mouse on the screen. But even now, like, we're in 2020, and I sometimes go back and look at that film and think, just a lot of that we're doing like these days now, but at the time, that kind of set like the new bar, I feel, for like what is possible.
Mm.
And I did find out recently what they're currently doing with that project, and I'm not going to say anything for fear of like ever getting like called up on it. But yeah, like to hear like the things that they're trying out for new like ways of doing stuff, like my goodness, just I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes from here. But yeah, the technology it evolves at such a scary rate. Like, to think back when we were playing games on consoles, like Nintendo 64, you would have a character that was probably 100 polys. You know?
Yeah. GoldenEye faces were just literal JPEGs of one
Literally
of
a
the
flat
face.
pane with
yeah.
a JPEG. Yeah.
And
And-
the tiniest textures as well on the N64 as well.
Yeah.
I mean,
I remember playing. Yes, sorry, go on.
I was going to say that this kind of barrel rolls, and we're not going to do this today, obviously, but this barrel rolls into a conversation that I certainly want. I'd love the three of us to be in again, which is just talking to Mike about development in the 90s. And just asking about, just asking
Hell
the
yeah.
questions that we might want to ask about those days, and just, I know you weren't in every square inch of that development, Mike, but you were certainly around it more than we were. So I think that's an interesting conversation to have. And the other thing that I was
for another day.
Yeah, and the other thing I was going to amend to this is, again, not that we can necessarily say too much about it, but to some degree we are on the cusp of technology with, say, research and development that happens where we work. And,
Yes.
being able to test out new pipelines, new solutions, new this, new that. And thankfully, working for a company like we do, a lot of that stuff is, if we can justify it, we can normally get it to test it or try it or to see how that stuff works. So that's also another exciting aspect of it.
Definitely. One thing that I do worry about with a lot of the technology sort of stuff, and this is mainly predominantly for games industry, is that it's getting too big to be able to maintain itself. And by that I mean the cost to make a AAA game these days is so inordinately large, and it needs so many people to get working that it's been growing and growing and growing over the years. To make a AAA game back when we were playing games, on consoles and stuff like that, back in the early 2000s, say, is a lot different to what it is now.
I mean, I'd argue that AAA wasn't even a phrase.
Yeah, I guess it was
like N64 days and whatnot. It was this is a Nintendo game, and Nintendo
it was
games
more
are normally pretty
mainstream,
good,
wasn't it?
Yeah.
There wasn't such thing as indie games back then. It was more, here's the mainstream, and here's some like B label games that you can get into. But nowadays, like the project we're currently working on, it's 400 strong working at the company now.
I think it's something like that, and we've just gone over 300 million in resources, in money. So,
and project is still going. So, yeah, that's that's a huge sum of money to make what is essentially going to be. I mean, it's going to be a phenomenal game when it's done, but it's essentially that's a lot of money for a project that you're going to have to put a lot of years into. Whereas you've got other games which probably take a lot less time to make, a lot less money to make, but have just as much, if not more, success. It's just one of those things where I do worry that the AAA side of the games industry doesn't what's the word I'm looking for? It doesn't sort of bring upon its own doom by setting a bar so high that it can never live up to that expectation.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah. Cool. Mike, have you got anything else that you'd like to add, or are you kind of happy there?
No, I think we've come to the end of the old lollipop. I think that's enough, maybe.
The end of the lollipop, Jesus.
We've just got the stick left.
That's it, just the stick.
Just the stick.
So, two last points then that I can make. Number one, I looked it up very quickly, and from a AWN article, the schedule, this is for Naughty Dog, the schedule allowed roughly 20 seconds of finished animation per week per animator. There was roughly 45 minutes. Oh, sorry, there are about 45 minutes of such sequences in in a game such as Jak and Daxter. So if you think about Jak and Daxter and what that game was, 45 minutes worth of cutscene work entirely or animation work, but then you're asking animators on The Last of Us to deliver 20 seconds a week per animator. So and you imagine how much cinematics there was for something like The Last of Us.
That's a lot of overtime.
That's a lot of that's a lot of damage.
Yeah, right.
And
Tape.
What was that? Sorry.
No, just never mind. Carry on.
Oh, right, okay. And yeah, the last question that I've got for you all.
Yes.
And it might be a bit of a curveball for you, but if you weren't
Sorry, if it's too bad one, I'll just end the call right now.
There it goes. Yeah. If you weren't doing this, man, what would you be doing?
What would I be doing?
Yeah.
Time.
It's a classic.
Good night, everybody.
And on that note, that is perfect. Well, yeah. Yeah, thank you very much all for sitting down. And
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, and just generally chatting around animation as a topic and your kind of history in animation and stuff like that. As I say, I would like to permeate more conversations that have this kind of discussion, and I like the idea of doing it like at the end of a week or something, because it's just a nice way to cap off the end of the week. You'll always remember to kind of like, okay, I'll sit down for an hour or whatever and have a discussion about whatever we're talking about this week. I know that it's ran over a little bit this time. But yeah, thank you for all of your time. Thank you for just divulging everything that you've spoken about. And hopefully, if we get to make some more videos for this channel, there'll be more of, a lot of us going around and just being able to talk around this topic. Obviously, it's not a channel where we're going to upload a bunch of memes and a bunch of gameplay videos for Fortnite or anything like that. But, at the same time, it would be nice to try and just, have these conversations every now and again, even just to get our thoughts out and stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So yeah, thank you all, Mike.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
You're you're here as usual. What a legend!
No.
You will be the next target, I'm sure, because as I say, talking about game development in the '90s would be something interesting. So you better make some notes, my friend. You better go back into the old memory banks and be like, God, that happened, and that happened, and that happened.
Too many brain cells are definitely gone. Dead and gone.
So yeah, just one more time around the table then. So thank you very much all for coming and doing this for us.
Thank you for having me.
That's all good. Mike, thank you again.
No problem. I'll be here whenever you need me, I guess.
You'll be forced here in shackles, Mike.
Yeah.
When do I get the check, by the way?
The check's in the Mike sorts out the money. You know that. Mike sorts out the checks. I'll leave the call and let you two figure that out.
I was expecting you to suddenly just disappear.
Wait a minute. I'm still waiting for my check.
This is the circle of checks that I've built up where everybody's responsible for everybody else's check. It'll happen. So yeah, thank you everybody for watching, and hopefully you got something out of this. And yeah, we'll see you next time when we talk about some other erroneous stuff to do with animation or the games industry. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye. My thumbs up. I want my thumbs up to be the same size. There we go.
How about if I do it this side? Hang on.
There we go. I need a big thumbs up that side. There we go. Oh, you're going full frame. Okay, so I'll go full frame. There we go. Bye, everybody.